everyone, and welcome back to an ETTO Star Wars chat, I'm going to say. Will and I have been doing a bunch of talk about Star Wars shows recently, and have been enjoying a lot of Star Wars. And we thought we'd get together and chat about all the news from Star Wars Celebration. But we also managed to rope in a little Sam, who's to the left of me, I think.
Yeah.
I'm just glad to be here, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah.
He's to the left of us.
Yeah. Yep.
Some would say.
That's a funny joke that you don't get. Or maybe you do. Maybe Will does
Maybe
a funny
you do.
gag. Who knows?
Maybe I will.
I will find out. But yeah, we figured Will and I have taken in a lot of this news over the weekend, a lot of very exciting news from Star Wars Celebration. And we're happy to talk for ages about it all. But we got Sam in here as kind of our layman who only knows the base level, the really big news that came out of the weekend, kind of running through some of the cool stuff that Star Wars is doing, because it's doing a lot of cool stuff. You guys have just come off talking about all the figures side of things that they're doing, which is also a lot. I didn't put any of that in this document, but they're going crazy. It's almost like they're run by Disney.
Money. They like money.
Yeah. But the one thing I will say, and we've talked about a little bit in our other podcast, Will, is I feel like Disney era Star Wars, for better or for worse, is kind of coming into its best age.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of shining through in like a lot of different varied shows, focuses on animation, focuses on books and comics, which we're not really into, but other people are. There's like, they've definitely honed their resources into all the different things, figures, all the various aspects of Star Wars lore that are important. And I feel like the TV shows, particularly in the past couple of years, because we've had no movies for a while, have really been, even if some of them are not to people's likings, like plenty of people aren't as big a fan of this season of The Mandalorian, they know what they are more. And that's the kind of thing that we're getting out of Star Wars at the moment. And it seems like from a lot of this news, we're getting that as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. I think it's very clear where their attention and dedication lies between their two big purchases of Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah.
It feels like quality control is a lot more apparent in the world of Star Wars. They don't really obviously let Boba Fett and Obi-Wan out, but that still had its fans in a big way. Like, it still brought an audience, whereas the lowest of the Marvel stuff really does fall flat. So it does feel like this is where their love lies. And it makes sense. It feels like more of a Disney product as well, Star Wars, compared to Marvel.
Totally.
And yeah, I've adored everything apart from... I've come around on Andor. I'm almost there. I'm around the bend.
I feel like you've come around like two circles on Andor, Will. I don't
Yeah.
You were there and then you weren't, then you were there and then you weren't again.
I don't think about it. That's the thing. All the other stuff is in my brain. Andor is not a show that's really spoke to me. So
that's very fair. That's very fair. And Sam is someone who's kind of been on the outer edge of the fandom, but like somewhat still taking in the shows and stuff. How have you kind of felt Star Wars has been over the past year or so, leading up to this kind of stuff?
Like, I've always been a Star Wars fan, like ever since I was a young kid. And I was really at the height of that when like The Force Awakens was out, because it was the first time that like Star Wars was present during my lifetime in the terms of like it was in cinemas, there was new merchandise coming out. You know, if it felt, I guess, what it would have been like way back when like A New Hope first came out.
Yeah, same for me.
Yeah, and then obviously you have shows like The Mandalorian and all that sort of stuff. And like, I hadn't really ever had like any doubts or anything in the past like year or so for Star Wars. Like, obviously it was a little bit crappy around like The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, like that sort of period of time. But for the most part with the shows, I did really enjoy them. I do feel like this season of Mandalorian is a little bit subpar compared to what has come prior to that. I know there are a lot of people like that. I'm not like entirely hating it. Like, I'm still enjoying when I'm watching it. But there's just like certain moments where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, so like now what are you going to do? Like, what's happening? But I am definitely like very excited for the future of Star Wars, given like the few bits of info that I've heard from this past weekend.
We'll get a bit more into that kind of Mando vibe and why I think it's maybe gone there in a little bit when we get to some of the shows around that. But yeah, no, that's totally, I agree entirely. I feel like when the end of the sequel trilogy and those films coming out kind of let a lot of people down, they did the right thing and just like did a hard stop and were like,
Big old pivot.
entirely refocus what they're doing. And like, as we've talked about, it's not for everyone, but it seems to be seeing a level of success that while those movies made a lot of money, there was a lot of discontent within the Star Wars fandom to an extent that I don't think is present nowadays. Everyone seems somewhat happy with some decisions that are getting made, which I think also speaks to the fact that they're just doing a good job of giving stuff to different people.
Yeah,
Sure.
Speaking of giving stuff to different people, we as Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, classic animated Star Wars fans are eating well at the moment, Will. Because the biggest drop probably for us and probably for a lot of people was Ahsoka got a brand new trailer. Sam, I'm pretty sure you mentioned you've seen this too. Have you seen much of Rebels and Clone Wars at all, or are you pretty on the outer for that?
I've watched a little bit of Clone Wars, but not really anything of Rebels. Just because I'm not the biggest like fan of like animated series.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
No,
It's
totally.
weird,
I mean, you're like a lot of people. And the thing is, it's a shame because it's, as we've established in our Discord over the past week, a lot of people think who have watched it, it's the best Disney Star Wars that exists.
No, for sure. Like, and I've heard that from so many people, but like saying that, I still know a little bit about what happens in Rebels, like with Thrawn and Ezra and all that sort of stuff.
Totally.
So yeah, seeing that trailer, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, even like not going in depth with the show.
Yeah.
And knowing like that whole storyline and like being as well versed with like all the characters and like what they've been through, just seeing it all in this sort of format now in this new series for Ahsoka, I was like, I found it really cool, not just because I was like, okay, this is a cool thing that I'm going to get to watch, but cool because I know that there's a whole like side of the Star Wars fandom that are about to lose their mind over what this show is going to do.
And they did.
Yeah, and they did.
I think one of the coolest things about this is it's going to bring people back to a lot of that content that maybe they haven't wanted to touch. It'll be interesting to see how people like kind of cope with being put into Ahsoka and how much they do a good job of explaining the precursor story, because it feels very reliant on a lot of that story that's going on throughout Rebels and stuff.
Filoni did mention over the weekend, he was like, I'm writing it with new watchers in mind, and I'm like, you say that about a Mando, and sometimes I'm like, I don't think you know what that means. Like, I don't think you know what a clean slate of the brain means for Star Wars fans. But I personally hope it does function well, because I watched it with my parents, who obviously have only consumed the films and Mandalorian-based shows. So I hope they get to enjoy it and fall in love with these characters that we've had for now 10 years, almost. Next year will be 10 years, that's 2014.
Crazy.
I hope it works. The trailer seems insane. There's so many elements in it that I can't even like assume what's going on. Like, Mandalorian.
I have a bunch of notes written through the trailer. Please. If you want me to run through them, you just stop me when you want. But I did want to say overall, the trailer has a very much like space epic vibe, as opposed to Mando, which feels very like space western, cowboy western. It's definitely, they're definitely going for a different tone in that capacity, which is complemented by the composer Kevin Kilner, who Will and I have been talking to death about how good of a job he's been doing on Bad Batch recently. Also the Clone Wars and Rebels composer. I think it's very cool he's making the move into live action, because like Ludwig Göransson, fantastic job with all the Mando stuff and all that. But it's nice to see Kevin Kilner kind of getting his move over into live action and hopefully getting his due with this show, because he's just doing a fantastic job. And that definitely helps to get that vibe across. In terms of the trailer, get a lot of shots of Ahsoka. Notably, she has her longer leku, which people were very upset about when she showed up in Mando. The little tail thingies. They weren't as long. They made them slightly longer. We get a shot of Sabine very early on from Rebels. At the end of Rebels, Sabine and Ahsoka kind of get together because, long story short, their friend Ezra has gone missing with Grand Admiral Thrawn, and so they kind of want to go looking for him. This seems like it's somewhat replicating that end of Rebels shot, but maybe it's also set at a different point. She has long hair. She has very colorful hair, which is another trademark of the character from Rebels, which is great. We see her hanging out with the Loth Cat, which are these cute little creatures that actually play a pretty big role in Rebels. and is played by Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who's an Australian, has been in Sydney, yeah, from Sydney. She's been in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, the Netflix movie. Don't know much about that. Greatest Showman and Hotel Mumbai. So some pretty big productions there, but is still a lot of actors I've been like putting these documents together, they're getting a lot of fresh faces or like people who haven't been in a lot of stuff, which is always good, I feel, getting the right person for the role rather than a big name. Although, speaking of big names, we get to see Hera, who is played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, which is crazy.
Obi-Wan's wife.
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor's real life partner, which is very fun.
It's very, very crazy, but also it seems like a good casting based on that character. And what we know of that character seems good. Totally. I think you've talked about how we hope we see the kid a little bit.
What does he look like now? Who is he played by? I love the casting. I think Mary, because she's also a very commanding actress in all of her roles. So to put her in the role of a commander, literally, Hera is one of the key commanders of the Resistance Alliance or New Republic Alliance.
We see her talking to a bunch of the it's a weird timeline, but we see her talking to a lot of like that Rebel Alliance, Resistance, New Republic people, including Mon Mothma, played by Genevieve O'Reilly from Andor. So it's cool that she's kind of going across not only shows but across eras, because this is after Jedi and Andor is before.
The one thing I don't get about her
she hasn't
is
aged.
that she hasn't aged. She looked that way in Revenge of the Sith in the deleted scenes. And then she's looking the same in Andor, which is pretty close. But then when she was in this, I'm like, that was 40 years ago. Or like 30 years ago. It's like, why is your face the same?
Totally. We also get a Star Wars Resistance cameo, which is the other Dave Filoni animated show that I haven't seen. But there's a guy from there who's in one of these holograms of all the Resistance people, which is kind of cool. I might go back and watch a bit of that now, but we'll see. We get a brief glimpse of Chopper, and he's silly, which Will
looks
and I
fucking dumb.
So happy about, because we were both quite worried that Chopper would not be his usual silly, goofy self. And then when Zeb showed up in a recent episode of The Mandalorian and was just felt like he was plucked out of nowhere, out of Rebels, and placed in this completely random other show. We're just like, okay, they get it.
We're good. Sam, for your information, when you do get to eventually hear, or you've probably heard sounds of Chopper, that's Dave Filoni, the guy with the cowboy hat. So I assume he'll be providing his voice for the show as well.
I hope so. I love that little robot. We get to see a live action Lothal, which is where they spend a lot of time in Rebels. It's Ezra's home planet. So that's pretty cool. It seems like Sabine's been spending some time there. In terms of antagonists, we see a couple of orange lightsaber users. Now, interestingly, Dave Filoni made a point to say these are orange lightsabers. They are not red lightsabers. And it's like someone pointed it out to him and I was like, I'm impressed you noticed that. There's a reason behind it. I heard some people saying maybe because there is and this is getting quite nerdy into Rebel stuff. I'm sorry, Sam. There is a shot in the trailer where Ahsoka is fighting one of them in the World Between Worlds, which is like this space portal-y area. And some people are saying maybe they're being pulled from the High Republic, because in Jedi Survivor, it seems like someone's been pulled from the High Republic era in there too. So maybe this is weird time travel stuff's happening. That's all I'm saying.
Damn. That'd be
possible.
Could be crazy.
The also, I don't know if you've noted this, but the lightsaber the dude's using is seemingly Kanan's. It's the same hilt. So
interesting.
People are also wondering if maybe they're like shit Sith clones.
Well,
they're like early clone theory.
Totally.
Is also something.
It could be that. The other thing that people have mentioned is the way in canon, the way that Sith lightsaber crystals are created is they have to corrupt the crystal by like taking the force of Jedi by bleeding it and stuff, and people are saying maybe these are partially blade crystals, so that's why they're orange and stuff. Anyway, a bunch of cool stuff with that. Going crazy over just orange colors. Honestly, they just look cool as well.
There may be nothing. He may be bullshitting and they're just orange lightsabers.
Totally. And then we also see an Inquisitor style character with the dual-bladed lightsaber later on. So it seems like there's a bit of that carrying over from Rebels, as well as these kind of seemingly new antagonists, as well as Magistrate Morgan Elsbeth, who is from the Ahsoka episode of Mando, the one where she shows up and they do the little duel. in that cool ass area.
Oh, okay.
She shows up briefly, seemingly in Thrawn's throne room, and apparently is playing a big role as an antagonist in this as well. I just mentioned Thrawn, of course, the major antagonist of this show, and seemingly the whole Mando-verse it's been teased in this show. Sure is going to show up in other shows. It's imminent, basically. But he appears in this, and he is played by Lars Mikkelsen, Mads' brother, and also the voice actor who played him in Rebels. So it's very cool, similar to Bo-Katan and Katie Sackhoff. They're pulling them across where they can from the animated shows, and I don't think anyone else could possibly have had the presence he does, so I'm so glad they've done that.
Only his brother. It had to be a Mikkelsen. It could have been either of them.
And Mads has already been in it, so... Yeah,
that's true. You couldn't get Galen in there again. Yeah. That's right.
They say the words heir to the Empire, which is quite famously where Thrawn was made famous in the Star Wars Legends canon. And it seems like they're kind of following through on a lot of that story from back in the day and bringing it into the new lore, which is very cool. And we also see Ezra show up very briefly, played by Eman Esfandi, who hasn't been in a lot of stuff, but was in King Richard, which is the movie that Will Smith got an Oscar for. He also slapped someone. But so that's cool. Some people are saying they think he might just be dead. But it seems weird that they cast someone for that, so I'm not buying into that theory. And then in terms of the other major casting and big reveal from this, it's a big reveal for Will and I'd say, from this trailer is David Tennant is returning as random asteroid.
I care about that too. I care.
You like the man?
That's true. You care about the actor. Will and I care about the actor and the character. Hu Young is a Mark IV architect droid who served the Jedi Order as a lightsaber expert and teacher, and appears in a beautiful trilogy of episodes in Clone Wars where a bunch of younglings go to the planet Ilum, which is where kyber crystals are farmed. Potentially what is made into Starkiller Base later, and go and find all their lightsaber crystals, go through these little trials of like facing their fears and all this stuff. It's very cool.
It's the first time we get to meet Lumpy.
Yeah.
Is it Lumpy? Is that his name?
Lumpy?
No, Lumpy's Chewie's kid's Lumpy.
Oh, no,
what's the kid?
The little Wookiee Jedi who...
Gunji.
Yeah.
Gunji.
Yeah.
Lumpy's canon as well, I swear.
Yeah. And basically they then go back to the ship, and this David Tennant droid teaches them how to make their lightsabers, and it's very cool. There's a whole process about like attuning themselves with the lightsabers. Super cool. Yeah. So... And
he's also a character that he's been around so long. He's taught Yoda and Mace Windu, and has similarly. I wonder him being in this, whether he's going to kind of be a connected tissue between all the eras.
The Acolyte, maybe.
Cool.
He may show up in the Acolyte in things like the Dawn of the Jedi kind of thing. Like he's going to be the central time traveling character between all the different eras. Totally. So I feel like that's where we're headed with his character.
That would be very cool.
Basically, the C-3PO of this new era, having him on every project to kind of connect them.
Totally. And I can see there's being some cool lightsaber lore we get with him in regards to both the orange lightsaber stuff we mentioned earlier. He might help to explain some of that. But also, I'm wondering if he's going to explain the kind of white lightsabers that Ahsoka now uses, and if there's a relationship going on there, because Ahsoka was in that original trilogy of episodes. So very curious to see what's going on there, but it's cool. It's always fun to see these characters from deep in like Clone Wars and Rebels. Like this is both Clone Wars and Rebels stuff carrying over into this, and like characters that I just forgot about, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's right, and that's awesome.
It's that guy. Yeah.
And even from Mando, like the Elspeth character who was pretty cool in that one episode, but we didn't get much of more. It's nice to see her kind of coming across.
Totally. Yeah.
Other than that, the other main thing we got about Ahsoka is the director's list was released.
Yes.
Obviously, Dave Filoni will be directing some of it. We also got Steph Green, who did some of Book of Boba Fett. Peter Ramsey, co-director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Which is
so far,
cool.
I think the most fun episode of the current season of Mando.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many fun moments in that.
Which episode did he do?
He directed the where the bird stole the child.
Oh, that's right.
Wait, no, the bird stole the child. Wait, hang on, no. He directed the assault on the town. Fucking Apollo Creed directed the bird episode.
Yeah, right.
Peter Ramsey directed when they storm Grief Karga's town. That's
right. The pirate one.
Yeah. There's so much fun in that.
That was very
So,
fun.
Yeah.
Totally, I can see that.
the frenetic action of Spider-Verse is just in the DNA of that episode.
Totally. Jennifer Getzinger, director Jessica Jones Daredevil. Geeta Patel, director of House of the Dragon. One episode of it, but the highest rated, and as someone who's seen it, the best episode of that show. So that's good. And Rick Famuyiwa, of course, who is very much in the Mando he's one of the main directors of Mando at this point. Directed tonight's episode, which these guys haven't seen and I have, and I can say is a banger. So very cool.
And the finale. He's also exec producer now, I think. Of the Mando universe.
Yeah,
so makes sense that he'd be here.
Totally. Which is funny because the one thing, his first episode was that weird prison episode.
It was,
and then it's kind of followed through and.
He proved himself.
Yeah, totally.
And it's also, for me, I'm very excited because it's dropping in August, which is my birthday.
Yeah, totally.
Month.
Soon.
So, soon as well,
It's only 4 months away, so that's very exciting. Moving on to Andor. Not much on this, but we found out that season 4... season 4? Season 2.
Wow.
Already?
Jeez. Yeah.
Season 2 is coming in August of next year, so we've got Ahsoka August of this year, Andor August of next year. Tony Gilroy, the showrunner on that, was like, it's nice to know that we have an ending, and we've kind of been building around that. So, it helps in our storytelling that we know where we need to end up and all that kind of stuff, which is always promising to hear, because there's not a... Like Mando has been doing a little bit, they're not kind of flailing in the darkness trying to get to these random places. They know exactly where they're going, which is cool. So he said production begun last November, and it should be completed by this August, around when Ahsoka's coming out. And then they got a year of post-production.
I saw the sneaky crotch film trailer that they also showed there. It's not got anything in it. It just showed old mate having cereal with his mum again.
Yeah.
That's
I'd say the other thing is it maybe implies a bigger role for him, but then it also maybe doesn't. It's just a lot of different characters. But the other thing, which we already knew, but just to remind people, season 1 of that took place over a year, and then season 2 of that will take place over 4 years, right leading up into the start of Rogue One. So definitely a few more time jumps, but given how good that first season was, except for Will, who disagrees,
and Sam. Sam's an asshole as well.
Given how good that first season was for me, I'm excited to see how they do season 2.
Look, they're K2 will come in halfway through, and I'll be like, "It's the best show ever." I'm happy.
Totally. Moving on to other shows, Skeleton Crew. This is John Watts' show he's leading, which is kind of, a lot of people are pitching as Stranger Things meets Star Wars, starring Jude Law as kind of the leader of a bunch of kids. And John Watts said the show is about a group of kids who are about 10 years old who get lost in the Star Wars universe, but it's not a kids show.
Ooh, that's cool.
And it's kind of set within this Mandalorian era
timeline.
Yeah. And there was some shaky cam footage of this.
It looks fucking cool, man.
It looks very cool. Yep.
It feels like Stranger Things 100%. From the very little that could be seen in the trailer, it felt darker than a lot of Star Wars has.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to cut a trailer to make it look that way, but there was something in the cinematography and the way
it looked
and tonally, So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to have Jude Law in something. I haven't seen him in a project in so fucking long.
He's been in Fantastic Beasts, which just fell fucking flat.
Yep.
And he's been in Captain Marvel before that. So yeah, it definitely feels like he hasn't been in a lot of good things for a while. Captain Marvel's fun.
And he's playing like a Jedi, right? He's a Jedi that survived the Purge.
I think so. I'm not sure the kids are all Jedi, but I think he is.
That'll be cool.
And it looks super cool. The one thing kind of tying this back to Mando, making it in that era, is that pirate guy whose name I can't remember from this season of Mando. The one who has the best makeup.
Yeah, the Nikto that got away.
Yeah, you know the one with like the flat kind of face, Sam?
The one
I
that
think
the one,
so.
The one
Yeah.
that literally is like, I'm going away now.
Oh yeah, that's right. And he just
When he says I'm
that's
going
right,
away, he's going away to Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, that's where it's going.
Apparently, the villains in this are very much like parody kind of stuff. So that's kind of where that's been leading towards. And then the other thing about this, which is the director list was also released like Ahsoka, but this list is cracked. This is insane. So we've got David Lowery, who directed The Green Knight, The Ghost Song, I believe it's called, and Pete's Dragon, the Disney remake of that. But I recently watched Green Knight, and that movie is wacky.
That's a movie.
Yeah. So,
that's an actual movie.
Yeah, totally. I'm excited to see that. The Daniels, obviously, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Swiss Army Man. So that could be crazy.
This has the potential to be their one bad project.
Totally. I'll get to that in a second because there's an interesting thing. Jake Schreier, who directed Paper Towns, the movie adaptation of that, which is John Green book, and is directing Thunderbolts. So, sure.
Yeah.
Bryce Dallas Howard, who directed many episodes of Mando and Boba Fett. And Lee Isaac Chung, who directed Minari, which was an Oscar-nominated film a couple of years ago. So, quite an eclectic, very, prestigious group of directors. My one thing with this is, we've had big-name directors kind of tied into Star Wars in the past, tied into Marvel projects in the past, and then because of the overall vision of the show, that kind of gets muddied. So it's interesting having people like David Lowery and the Daniels, who have very distinct styles, kind of being pushed into this show. I'm interested to see if the episodes do kind of hold up to that kind of standard, or if it's a bit more like Taika Waititi in Mandalorian, where it's like, it's his episode because he talks a lot in it, but that's kind of
It's a little bit funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be cool if it's kind of more along the lines of something like Only Murders, where you can tell a presence is on board because it's the one where it's a hearing impaired character, so we've tunneled it through such a unique vision, or stuff like that show kind of does.
Yeah.
It'd be nice. Yeah. It obviously, I can't imagine it being as weird as a Daniels film, but if there's kind of a tangible version of their style, it'd be pretty cool.
Totally. So no date on this one, but assuming because they're showing footage for it, it's probably in the late 2023. I'm going to say probably I think they might have said loose 2023. So it could be coming in the December period that Boba Fett came for this one.
Yeah.
But there's no hard locked in date for that one, but I'm excited. It sounds fun. It sounds fun, but as you said, also seems like it's got maybe a style that some of these other shows don't have as much, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then moving away from the Mando-verse a little bit, but still in live action shows, we have The Acolyte, which is a very interesting project. It's been revealed a couple years back, I think. On one of the Disney Plus days. But this is basically a series set within the High Republic era, about 50 years prior to The Phantom Menace. And the synopsis is: a time rife with shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers, a former Padawan reunites with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of crimes, but the forces they confront are more sinister than they ever anticipated, which is just, the synopsis for any show ever. But apparently, there was a short footage teaser that was shown for this one as well. Again, tonally looks like something different. So as we've been talking about across this whole thing, it feels like they're giving their shows their own identity, which is nice. This one also has a stacked cast. So we already knew a bunch of cast. We knew Lee Jung-jae, who's the main guy in Squid Game. Manny Jacinto, who is in The Good Place. He's Jason in The Good Place, which is awesome. Daphne Keane from Logan, who plays X23 in that. Jodie Turner-Smith, who I couldn't find anything she's from. Charlie Barnett from Russian Doll. Dean Charles Chapman, who's in Game of Thrones in 1917. And Carrie-Anne Moss from The Matrix. Just a crazy stacked list. And then in this, we also learnt that another person from Russian Doll, Rebecca Henderson, is playing Vanestra Rowe, who is a character who has already been in the comics and novels. So this is the clear... They've been working on this High Republic stuff behind the scenes for a little while now, and this is their time to kind of push that over into this. Also the showrunner's wife, but apparently a great actress in Russian Doll. So while there's a level of nepotism going on there, I'm sure she's great.
Yeah, well, she put her in Russian Doll as well. So
okay. Well, there you go.
There's a little bit of that, but she's great in the very small role she has in Russian Doll, because the showrunner of Acolyte is also the showrunner.
That
Russian Doll.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's, and then we also, the other casting we learned is that Jonas Sutarmo, who played Chewie in the sequels, in the sequel trilogy, and also in Solo, will play a different Wookiee, a Jedi named Kel Naka. So we're getting another Wookiee Jedi. Obviously, we know they exist because of Gungi in the latest stuff. But yeah, it's very cool to be able to see one of them in live action in a different era. Very exciting. But yeah, this is the one I'm probably most trepidatious about, but excited to see where it goes. I assume this one's probably the furthest down the line. I'm going to say this comes after Andor.
Yeah, well, it's kind of been shooting alongside it. There've been some set photos and stuff earlier this year or late last year. So yeah, it may be close to or just a little bit after Andor. This one, I think Sam is probably one of the projects you're most interested in. Yeah,
because like I love Star Wars for the Jedi aspect and the Sith aspect and the Force and all that sort of stuff. So the fact that they're sort of going to be exploring like, you know, the first sort of exposure to the dark side and like all that sort of stuff, I think is very interesting. And I'm sure like with that, there'll come like another sort of story element of like people who are Force sensitive and Jedi sort of, you know, being confused by this other aspect of the Force. And like it's basically just got room to be a very, very well made and interesting bit of content.
Yeah, it's also exciting. Intrigued. Like, it's a bunch of characters that we don't know the fates of.
Yeah.
Which is sick.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, anyone could die, which is cool.
I think
you'll feel something?
Yeah. That's great. And I think, as you mentioned, like, we haven't had a lot of Jedi content or, like, fully Jedi-focused content since the, like, Skywalker saga, that trilogy. And it's really nice. Like, obviously, that's an integral part of Star Wars, but I think, to an extent, part of the criticisms of those later films was everyone was feeling a sense of the Jedi fatigue. So it's nice that they're bringing back the Jedi, but giving it to us in this completely different setting, as you mentioned. And yeah, as you said as well, we don't know the fates, which for a Star Wars show is very rare. So I think that's also very cool.
The showrunner also said it was inspired by Kill Bill and Frozen are the two like
I did read that. Yeah.
references. Now, the thing that I've seen people theorize is that potentially one of the characters like has a twin and one twin is on the light and one is on the bad, and that's where the Frozen angle comes in.
That was from the best episode. Hang on.
Oh yeah.
This is why I have wireless headphones, everyone, because normally, but they're broken. That's from the best episode of Star Wars Visions.
There you go.
Where there's not the best, but one of the best with these two twins. Both one of whom is on each side, and it's great. It's a great storytelling. I'm sure it won't be those characters, but
Well, the thing that people are wondering is one of the actresses. I think the one that you couldn't find a reference for. She's quite young. People are wondering if she may be playing both twins.
Totally.
And that's why they've not really revealed what she's doing yet.
Yeah, very cool.
And that would be very cool. So yeah, that may be where the Frozen element comes in, because otherwise. Okay.
Not sure about that. But yeah, a few of these like castings going back, I forgot that Jason from The Good Place was in it. I forgot that Dean Charles Chapman, who is in the later seasons of Game of Thrones, but was like fantastic young actor back then, has been in 1917 since. And stuff. Like, he's in it. Like, I think this has all the ingredients to be very good. But yeah, it's also we know the least about it.
Also being Lee's first English speaking role, basically in Western media.
Yeah,
he must be pretty good.
He was the main character in Squid Game, right? I'm not getting. Totally. Yeah, very cool.
Exciting.
That's all the stuff for the main TV shows. A quick few things on the animated shows. Sorry, that was all the live action stuff. Now the animated shows, Tales of the Jedi is returning for a second season, with no further details on who it will focus on. The first season of that focused on Dooku and Ahsoka. The Dooku episodes in particular of that, all animated in the Clone Wars style. Fantastic. So excited
Please don't
to see.
do a friggin' Ahsoka episode again. Jesus.
Well, it seems like they're going to use them for other Jedi based on what they're saying, because they don't have a specific focus in mind yet, or they haven't told us. And then this is a slightly more minor one, but Young Jedi Adventures is a Disney Junior series. So maybe not one we'll all watch, but it's set in the High Republic era, and it's about a bunch of younglings and Yoda going around to different planets doing good things. Very, very lovely, very wholesome.
I watched all the shorts last night, and they're very sweet.
Yeah,
like
totally.
I'm not going to watch more than them, but watching them, I was like, oh man, it's cool that when I have a kid, I'll have this to show them because it's just it's a flat out show for babies.
Yeah, totally.
And it's really cool.
And they will visit Batuu in that, which is the planet where all the Disney park stuff is set. So that's kind of a cool little crossover there. So they're kind of
there's no way they didn't kick themselves not making Batuu the planet, Kijimi in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
You know, the place where they find whatever.
Totally.
It's like, that was Batuu. Why didn't you fucking make that Batuu?
Yeah. It makes no sense.
Just it's a little
But then Bad Batch will get a third and final season in 2024. Super exciting for me and Will in particular as Bad Batch lovers. There is a podcast we did on season 2 that you can catch on our channel very recently. But yeah, there was a teaser shown for that. We get a few shots of the Emperor visiting Hemlock, who's the cloning guy in that, on his cloning mountain. And it's all about the Bad Batch appearing in that kind of area. They've all been captured. Omega's been captured, and they're kind of trying to rescue her from there and all that kind of stuff.
And Crosshair says, "I'm not one of them."
Yep. Totally. He says that. There's plenty of giant creatures. Wrecker says, why is there always a huge monster in classic Wrecker fashion?
Very on the nose.
And Ming-Na Wen's bounty hunter Fennec Shand returns. So that's cool. Very exciting.
I like to think that they put her into that trailer after she spoiled, because the day before the trailer came out, she's like, oh yeah, I'm back in season 3 of that show. And it's like,
so funny.
Huh?
Yeah.
So...
Totally.
I love her. And I think that her line in the trailer is literally like, we're supposed to break the rules or something.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you did, honey.
A little bit on the nose. But the main thing from that is final season, which is good.
Yes.
I'm glad they've made that call, as we kind of talked about in our podcast for that. Wasn't even sure they'd do a third, but it's nice to know that they have a set ending for where they want this to go. And obviously, hopefully... We'll probably get more shows in this animated style. They love this style, but it's nice to kind of hear that the Bad Batch story is wrapping up. And then the other animated show that we know about, Star Wars Visions. Oh, wait, sorry. There's Star Wars The Droid Story, which we heard nothing about and is probably being
It's probably dead.
But then Star Wars Visions Volume 2 is out on May the 4th.
Oh!
So exciting. Obviously, myself, a massive Star Wars Visions lover, have a bunch of... some of the few figures I own in this house are Star Wars Visions figures. So that shows you how much I love that. This season, the first season was based almost entirely Japanese animators. This season is going a lot more global with it. So we got the names for all the different episodes. I'm going to run through them real quick and just mention some where they're from. So there's one called Sith, which is from a studio called El Guiri, a Spanish studio. The main thing here is the director has worked on Ice Age and at Pixar during like the Finding Nemo Incredibles era. So that's the one that I think has the very high quality 3D animation that you see in the trailer.
Really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
One called Screech's Reach from a studio called Cartoon Saloon. Both fantastic names. In the Stars, which is by Studio Punk Robot from Latin America. I Am Your Mother is the Aardman one, which is very cool.
Dude, do you know what Aardman are, Sam?
I've got no clue, no.
Aardman are the company behind like Wallace and Gromit and...
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so they're doing a Star Wars.
Oh, so we're doing like
episode.
a claymation, like...
It looks so good. And this one actually has, I can't remember his name, but Wedge Antilles from like the original trilogy. He's in it and voiced by the original actor as well.
Yeah. I Am Your Mother, a fantastic name as well. You could just tell that's going to be amazing. Journey to the Dark Head, which is by Studio Mia, who did the Dota anime, which I like.
That makes sense. That initial one they show in the trailer, I was like, this is very...
but they also did Legend of Korra before that, and a lot of the people who worked on that worked on Avatar before that. So very prestigious studio there. Spy Dancer, which is by Studio La Cachette, which is a French studio, if you couldn't tell by the name. The Bandits of Golak, which is from a studio called 88 Pictures in Singapore. Our Song, which is by a studio called Triggerfish in South Africa. And then finally, The Pit, which is by Studio Dutch Digio, which I probably butchered, and Lucasfilm. This seems to be based on a lot of their animation work they did for Star Wars Resistance and stuff. This seems like somewhat of a Lucasfilm in-house job, but like with an external studio where people have gone from like Rebels and Resistance and all that stuff and made a separate studio.
Cool.
And this is the one that has Steve Blum, who plays Zeb, on the cast list. So I imagine this will be the closest to like actual
a normal
lore
thing. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so that's all very exciting. The fact that we're getting all that in literally less than a month is super cool.
Yeah. May the 4th.
Yeah, May the 4th. Can't wait. I like that they drop stuff on May the 4th. It's always fun. Now, jumping into Star Wars timeline stuff, which normally pretty boring, but I feel like this is pretty important for overall Star Wars, where they're going with it in the future and stuff. People have kind of been wondering how the Disney Star Wars timeline lines up, what is included out of the old Legends canon, what is not, and where Disney has inserted all their stuff. So this was the first time, I think, since they bought them, maybe even, that they put on a full timeline of all the eras up on the stage. So initially, the timeline they gave us was the Old Republic, which they have basically not said since they started making stuff under Disney. So that's a big deal that they said that.
They like announced the remake, but didn't talk about it being a canon thing.
Totally. They announced Knights of the Old Republic getting remake. But yeah, so definitely I expect to see more Old Republic-based stories going forward, which is very cool.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Because it seemed like the next era, the High Republic, was kind of their substitute for that. But the fact that they're delineating them out from that, High Republic seemingly closer to Phantom Menace prequel trilogy era, so kind of building towards the fall of the Jedi there, whereas Old Republic is very much like old Jedi, old Sith ways, completely separate era. And a quick note on High Republic, it's entering its third and final phase of books and comics, which basically just says to me that they're like, okay, we fleshed out the lore, so now they're going to make other stuff with it. We make the
things. Yeah, totally.
Hence the Acolyte, all that stuff. So High Republic is second, then Fall of the Jedi is the third era, which is the prequel trilogy, then Reign of the Empire, which is original trilogy, and Age of Rebellion, which is also the end of original trilogy. And the New Republic, which is kind of the Mando era, which we'll get to in a second, and then Rise of the First Order, which is the sequel trilogy era. And then they were like, but that's not all. We want to go further into the future and further into the past, which leads us to 3 new films that they've talked about. So the first of them, without going into those extra eras yet, is a Dave Filoni directed film. I think is this his feature film debut? Yeah. Yep. Pretty crazy. That will close out the Mando-Verse, close out that New Republic era that we just talked about, be a culmination to that era and most likely lead into the Rise of the First Order. We're not sure if it's exactly going to lead right into the start of The Force Awakens, but we'll see. But that's going to close out and like act as a culmination of all the events that are happening in Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, and probably more by the time we get to
there'll be some more shows.
These films don't exist, is basically what we've been learning.
And so they may never.
They are concepts at the moment. So that's a big deal, because it also means there's been scuttlebutt that The Mandalorian is never going to end, that they didn't have an end in plan for it, but they've kind of gone back on it this week and are like, no, there's an end.
We've got like 2 more seasons and then we're done.
Yeah. Totally. So that's very cool, very exciting to get Dave Filoni helming a film for once. And then the other 2 films are those other eras we talked about. So the first, going far into the past, is a biblical epic that will tell the story of the dawning and origins of the Force. Set in this new era before all those eras, called the Dawn of the Jedi era. And this is directed by James Mangold, who you will know from Logan, Ford vs. Ferrari, and the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which also a great trailer. We're not talking about it here because it's not Star Wars, but great trailer.
It's good.
So that's very cool. It feels like the perfect kind of project for James Mangold to be on. He said, when I first started talking to Kathy about doing one of these pictures, what occurred to me was thinking about what kind of genre of movies within Star Wars I wanted to do, and thought about a biblical epic like a 10 Commandments about the dawning of the Force. Where did the Force come from? When did we discover it? When did we learn how to use it? So it's going to be like deep lore shit.
Which feels cool. Like it's the boxes you just you talked about, Sam, that you like your
Yeah.
Jedi and your Sith. And
Yeah,
your-
totally.
It's like because this I think is the one that I'm most excited for because I love when franchise they establish a thing being the Skywalker saga and then in that is elements of the Force and Jedi and Sith, but then you've got all those questions of like, okay, well then when did this begin, how, who, what, when. So being that we now get the opportunity to go back and witness all of that, and then like you said, Ben, like just building that lore, I'm really, really excited about.
Totally.
Sick.
Totally. It's so cool. The other thing he said later in an interview, which happened alongside him confirming that he is writing DC Swamp Thing, which was the most random confirmation of that, which James Gunn later came out and confirmed was an actual thing.
Of course he did.
Was that between those two films, he doesn't know which will come first. There's no date for either of them because it's just whichever one he vibes with first will be the one he makes, which is
fair.
At the very least, is an interesting insight into how Disney is doing things now, where they are like, other than maybe the Filoni stuff, they're like, it just gets made when it's made and it's ready, and you have the thing that you want to make, which I think is good.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you may be talking about it later, but Kathleen talked about the Taika movie.
Yeah.
She's like, he's doing it when he does it. He's like not sure what he wants to do yet, so we're not doing anything yet.
Yeah, which is the opposite philosophy they had back in the sequels and with all those spin-offs and stuff. So it's good. It's good for now until it isn't good.
Totally. And it's the opposite of, and it's a very different situation, but the Marvel universe where it's like, we need all these stories.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like, well, we don't have a universe to build, so why rush anything?
Totally. And I think the other thing is that like Marvel could do a thing where they rely on the wider lore that everyone knows about and just make stories across everything. What Star Wars is doing, I think to its benefit here, is just being like, as they laid out all these eras, I think it showed that they're like, okay, we know we have all this stuff. Let's just like
Let's have fun everywhere.
Where people want to make stuff, we'll let them make a thing there. And I think that's very cool. And then the final of the 3 films that was announced is very exciting for a lot of people, I think. It's a film following Rey starting the new Jedi Order, which is the era that will now be post the rise of the First Order and obviously the end of Rise of Skywalker. So set after the sequel trilogy, directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. And this is a fascinating choice because she is a very prolific documentary director and activist. She won a bunch of Emmy and Academy Awards for those documentaries and stuff. She is Pakistani, so she worked on, probably for most people have a touchstone to this, the Miss Marvel Pakistan duo of episodes, which while people may have issues with that show, I will say those 2 episodes have an identity and very much focus on a very specific thing within that show. So I think this is a fascinating choice.
It's wild.
I'm like, still doesn't make a lot of sense in my brain how they've gotten there, but like it clearly, like, she is very in tune with human rights and all these kind of things. So I'm curious about what kind of story is going to be told there in a post everything world. Like, this is literally the furthest in the timeline of anything that we know in Star Wars. And yeah, just very cool to see Rey back. I wish there was a world in which Finn and John Boyega was back in this, but I think those bridges are too burnt at this point. Yeah. I hope otherwise. Yeah. Maybe we learn otherwise.
I hope he comes in. Yeah. It's so funny. People are like, some of the comments like, oh, he can be, Finn should be in it as like her apprentice and stuff. I'm like, it's 15 years on. The dude is a fucking grandmaster by now.
Totally.
Like, remember that it doesn't take 15 years to get good at it. Like, So, which is almost a shame because I would almost like to see Rey guide him through that. But I think if we do get Finn, he is going to be fairly well advanced in the ways of the Jedi.
I think there's a world in which he shows up in this, but I think his time of helming Star Wars content is definitely over, and he's talked about how he's happy to be away from it, which is a shame. It's a shame what Disney did there and all that kind of stuff, but I'm at least glad that Rey is getting more time to shine and is not being, as we feel like a lot of these characters were, done dirty by how that trilogy ended and stuff.
At the same time, I tracked up my bit of art on Reddit and I forgot how shit people are and were around that era. Like, I totally forgot how like horrible people were and how much people seem to forget what a character is and what an actor is. Like, we haven't really experienced it in quite a while. I feel like moved on since
the closest we got
sequels.
to it, I feel like, was with Obi-Wan and
and Reva
and the actress who played Reva in that. I feel like that was close to that, but it definitely wasn't at the level that we got with like Kelly Marie Tran and stuff. And just all the vitriol in that era. I'm like, I know those people still exist within the Star Wars fandom, but I like that we've largely moved past that and can just accept that people have different opinions on this shit, man. Like, I love The Last Jedi, but it's fine that other people don't. We can just move on from that. So yeah, I'm glad that hopefully Rey and some of these other characters will kind of get to live outside of that trilogy. And again, it's like that. It's not like that trilogy is totally terrible. There are good parts of those movies that I think they will carry through into this, that they've carried through into Mando and stuff. But I think it's more about how it all ended and all the stuff around that. So it's very cool to see them moving forward with that. Yeah. And as fleshing out the timeline further, the timeline's getting very long. That's like 9 eras, maybe 10. Nine eras. So, you know, maybe we don't need to add any more onto that, but I feel like there's a lot of space to work with within that, which is very cool.
I mean, I just hope that we see the kid that held up the broom.
It's totally, man.
Gotta be. It's gotta be.
Yeah, he's gotta be in her
make
order.
Everyone who hated The Last Jedi mad, and that's what I want.
It'll be fun, great.
Yeah.
The movie will open with a kid holding a lightsaber like a broom, and people will be like, "Oh God!"
Yeah,
Nah, I think it's really cool. I'm also just like you say, there's a lot of cool stuff in the sequels. I want to see more of characters like Dio, like the little droid, like stuff like that.
Totally.
I just want to see those things. I'm like, I'm still waiting. And I'm going to look away from Ben. Not that I think she's in it, but just in case she is. I want to see more Maz Kanata in this timeline of like Bad Batch and Mandalorian, because she's as old as fucking like Yoda. Like she's old. Chewbacca, sorry. Like I really want to see her get integrated in a lot of these other adventures.
Totally. So, and I think like having, I think they're called the Anzillions, like the Babu Frick creatures and all that stuff, and bringing the cool bits of even the Rise of Skywalker was a bad film. Bringing stuff,
they're getting some bubbles
from that, and like the stuff that people like from that. Like they seem to know where things went right at least. And similarly with Rey, like her whole Palpatine storyline is there, but I think the crux of her journey is at least still somewhat intact from there. So hopefully that'll carry through.
Literally just don't use any of the words.
Yeah.
Her story's great. It's just unfortunate that Palpatine and Skywalker happened. I love the I like the Skywalker thing. It's a shame how we got there.
Yeah, no, totally.
Like I love that she's Rey Skywalker. I think that's wonderful. It just sucks that she does it because she doesn't want to be Palpatine. Yeah, it's like, that's silly. It's cool that she takes her master's name, but anyway.
Yeah, anyway, that's a separate conversation. That's most of the stuff. Couple other little tidbits real quick from the weekend. Return of the Jedi is returning to cinemas for the 40th anniversary on April 28th.
Have you heard anything about this?
Nothing here, unfortunately.
God damn it.
Okay.
So far.
It's got a badass poster, though.
Oh, it does.
Poster.
Matt Ferguson.
It does.
Yeah.
Gone to town.
And my one thing about this is that I will only go watch it if they bring back Yub Nub, and they're not bringing back Yub Nub, so I'm not going to go watch it. But if they did that would get me to go back to the cinemas for it.
You don't want to see Jedi Rocks in cinema?
No, I really do not. And then the other thing from the weekend, which is a game coming very soon, out later this month, in fact, Jedi Survivor got a final trailer. Not a lot super notable in this. A lot of stuff we knew already. Cal is sexy and customizable. So is BD. BD is customizable, which is very cool.
And sexy. I mean,
droids can be sexy. That's true.
Yeah.
Coruscant is a location in the game. There was a big scuttlebutt over the weekend about it's open world on Coruscant, and then they came out like, no, it's not open world. It's just a large environment, which I think is good. Not transitioning the game to open world, but they are going to have larger areas,
bigger environments,
which is, some people love that, some people hate that, but I'm at least I'm glad it's not even I know, Will, you're very anti open world, but even I was like, oh god, please no.
There was also a great thing in what's the guy's name? The guy who plays Cal? Cameron Monaghan. Yeah. In his interview on stage, where he came out in a poncho, and literally to every question asked, he was like, well, as a poncho. And it was a very delightful thing, because we still don't know if there's ponchos in the game.
That's true.
True.
All the customization. I will say, He threw the poncho into the crowd, which was a lovely gesture. Unfortunately, the person that got to keep it, and I just want to say it so that people know about this person and avoid it. If you see the person, they're unfortunately a very problematic person that was in the Doctor Who community, and they rebranded themselves, moved to Star Wars, and that's kind of, they're now unknown. So just be on a lookout.
Yeah.
You know, block them, do all the right things, because this dude is not good. But the gesture was very lovely. The fact that he threw the poncho into the crowd. So I love the dude. I hope he shows up in stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's unfortunate that the stuff he could show up in without like aging effects is kind of nowhere. Like, there's nowhere to put him. And also, I don't want to know if he survives until The Mandalorian.
Totally.
So it's like, I don't know where he shows up. Maybe Andor or something, or an Obi-Wan. But I just want to see him in live action with a BD on his shoulder.
Totally. He's, as much as we gave him shit for being this white guy in a world of lots of diverse characters, he's very good in that first game, and I'm sure he'll be fantastic in the second game. We also got a bit of vehicle-based combat, which is fun. We saw him fighting a Rancor, which I'm excited about. That's going to be very cool. We got a bunch more of the villain who people are talking about in the Discord. He's just a big lad to me. Not really sure where he's from, but he's a big lad.
Yeah.
But the thing that made me pop is there are droidicas that we get to fight.
Droidicas.
Cool.
Droidicas.
Yeah. So that game is coming out. I don't remember the exact date, but it's within
April 28th.
So like
hell yeah.
A bit over 2 weeks away from now.
Yeah.
So that's super cool.
Oh shit, that's like really soon.
It is.
Exactly.
Which is why
I should probably go pre-order it.
The marketing is bizarre for this game. It's like they're not telling us, and good, I don't want to know anything, but they're not telling us about story. It's so secretive, and so it'll be interesting to see how it does.
But that is Star Wars Celebration 2023, which was honestly huge. Like the biggest one we've gotten in a while, and a lot of like exciting news. I've said a lot of what I feel about this stuff, but I'm very happy they're in a place where almost all of these announcements got something out of me. Even like Jedi Survivor, I mentioned at the end because I didn't feel like there was a lot in it, but even bits of that, I was like, oh yeah, this is very cool. I'm excited to play this game in a little bit of time. So like, they're making all the right moves. I feel like that's kind of all I have to say on it. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Sam, did this excite you any more than before we talked about this? Or you're at the same level?
Yeah, I'm definitely I think it's a thing for me where when I hear people talk about it more, I get more excited because there are elements of these things that I might not understand or know about that you guys do or someone else does. So then when you explain it to me and it like makes sense and it can link to different like comics or books or TV shows, whatever, I'm like, well, that's pretty damn cool, isn't it? So yeah, and I think like the more these things like get closer as well, like the hype for me will just go out the door.
Totally.
Like not out the door as in like it'll just go.
I give up now.
I hate it now.
Yeah.
But like it will very much like go.
It's the opposite Marvel effect right now, where I feel like Marvel stuff, the closer it gets, the more I'm like, I guess.
And I think the thing for me now is that it was really good hearing all these announcements for Star Wars because they're announcing these things for Marvel and nothing has like really hit home for me. Like they'll say, oh yeah, we're doing Avengers Secret Wars, we're doing A, B, and C movies, and I'm like, oh okay, like I'll watch them because they're a Marvel movie. But now with Star Wars, it's like, oh yeah, we're doing this thing that's being made by Mangold, and you know Rey's coming back, and there are all these things where I'm like, okay, I'm actually excited for these.
There's focuses behind the products and stuff.
Yeah, like I'm seeing this one for Star Wars, but two because it sounds like you're making a genuinely good piece of product.
Totally. It's like it's a bit like Werewolf by Night where they all feel like projects that someone wants to make rather than the studio wants to make and it's just kind of outsourcing it. It's similar to how I kind of like this felt like when James Gunn was like, these are the things I want to do with DC. I'm like, sick, cool. Like I like the uniqueness of everything. I like that there is like an identity behind every single thing. So it's sick, man.
Yeah.
For Marvel.
Totally. No, I think the one thing I'll add to that, Will, is just that you and I have talked a lot about how like we're really enjoying how fun Star Wars is. Fun in a lot of different ways, and fun not in just like the happy-go-lucky, weird, campy vibe that the Mando gives us, but fun in different ways. It's clear the people who are making it are having fun as well, which is like, and that feels like it's been missing from a lot of the recent Marvel stuff. So I feel like that's really what shines through to me is like anyone who's been talking about it over the weekend whether it's Dave Filoni, who's been in this stuff for years, or James Mangold, who is just coming into it now, all of them are like excited to do the thing. And
I was going to say, if there's one thing I can recommend after listening to our podcast is go back and watch all the main stage interviews, because everyone that comes out is both like so appreciative of all the Star Wars fans that are there, but are so like emotional about the projects they're working on, or you know, the Andor cast is sitting there and just having the time of their life. It's like, if you aren't already at the hype levels that we clearly are, those interviews will actually push them higher, because it just, you can feel the love that all the people on these projects have. It's sick. It's really cool.
Totally. Well, that's been a lovely chat. I'm glad we all got to talk about our Star Wars, got to nerd out together. Very exciting next couple of years for them as well. That's the other thing. I feel like this is just the next couple of years, at least for the TV shows. So when Star Wars Celebration comes back around, I feel like now that they're doing this on kind of a 2-yearly cadence, we'll get a bit more of this every couple of years, which is exciting. So it will be cool to run through all that. I'm sure we'll do podcasts at the time talking about all this stuff as it comes out. Give you our thoughts. Hopefully they're happy thoughts. But in the meantime, you can catch us on ETTO.card. I can't. What is it? Well,
ETTO.card.co with the double R and the card.
There we go. It's it's less complicated than I think it is. You can get all our links there, including to our Twitch, our YouTube. We're each their own, or Online, or ETTO, depending on where you choose. But it's all in that one link. We'll be doing a bunch of Twitch streams. We'll do a bunch of YouTube podcasts, some shorter form YouTube content, any of that stuff that takes your fancy. But until then, I've been Ben.
I'm Will.
And I've been Sam.
And catch you next
time.
time.
May the force be with you.
Oh, he said the cool thing.
God damn it.
I had to.
Yeah. That's when all the girls and all their fanboys and everyone just scream in the crowd. They're like, "Oh, Sam! Oh, he said the thing! Oh, my heart! Oh."
You're so right, though.
Yeah.